with great ease, and of course to Ruben,
Yeah.
and of course to the your viewers and your listeners. I get feedback, and it's really encouraging to me. So to continue the fight, as they say. And
Yes.
of course, we're looking Monsieur Noray. I
Mhm.
sure will be joining us very shortly, wherever he is.
Yes, he will be joining us shortly. Yes, he is.
We have
So
so
what?
much to talk about this
So
time,
much, so
David.
much, so much to talk about.
Where do you want us to start?
You do the
Um,
shot.
but I can start, but I can ask you
Yeah.
your opinion too.
Hmm.
With I think on a global level, the issue now is the death, passing of the Queen at the age of 96. I mean, it was not unexpected.
Hmm.
And the outpouring of empathy, the things that everyone has said, I think we could all agree with. She has been steadfast. She has kept the ship afloat. She has been um, one who has had a great sense of duty to country and all those good things that the empire or the once empire would be very proud of.
Yeah.
But of course, we know that there are different sides to the coin. So I want to ask you your views
Hmm.
on the passing of the Queen.
Well, where that is concerned, as a human,
Yeah.
I share that kind of empathy and it's a solemn time when anybody dies, anybody of some, especially those who are at the top. It creates a kind of void sometimes. But where the empire and the reign of the queen is concerned, there are other sides to the coin, like you said, that might impact on me more, if I should say. I don't want to say bother me or it affected me that kind of way, but because some of those instances were just historical statements, if I should put it like that. But based on what the empire did, I mean, to become an empire, those who were at work to build the empire, there were lots of plundering. I mean, some of these same Commonwealth countries today living very impoverished lives and all of that under that same queen rule. I mean, she's been there since I think it was the end of the Second World War, and but the kind of things that the British and so and pertaining more to the empire style of the British rule. There are lots of things that I would not comply with or say, well, it was good and, I will bow to her for this and that, I would not bow to the queen, first of all. I understand the position and the monarchy, and as human, we all feel that kind of when somebody dies, especially somebody of that kind of stature. But what the British Empire represents, or used to represent, or still represent under a new theme, the Commonwealth, there are lots of things that I would not say it's okay. I would have objections to a lot of things that is happening, even now. Because, like I said, there are lots of countries within the Commonwealth that they live very poor lives. They're suffering. The racial thing. I mean, when you look at the instance with Harry and Meghan, when I look at the racial slurs that were passing there, I say, well, no, these are different people. They say you have to be of a certain lineage. You must not have a broken gene if you want to be of royal blood. So all those things. I have history, so I have a lot against what the British did to people across the world.
Well,
There are good things.
David,
There are
you are
good things.
very polite
Yeah.
because I'm not going to be that polite. I know I'm not going to be that polite regarding the Queen.
Yeah.
And I will give you a few instances. I don't even use the Meghan and Harry thing because,
Hmm.
Don Lemon had to say, you mean you didn't know you were black all along?
Yeah.
I'm not going to use her as any barometer of what to use that as proof of evidence, but I can use other things.
Hmm.
And among the things that I would mention, I think the days of the monarchy are slowly coming to end. I don't think
Yes.
that Prince Charles has the charisma and the respect that his mother had for a number of reasons. We can't go into, he's 1973, and his son is such a rigid, anal character, and his wife is a commoner, as is Meghan. And so he's too rigid, he's too restrictive, he's too trying to play a role, and it's just not coming across authentic. And insofar as this empire, some of the facts, and I actually got this article because I said I didn't want anybody to say that it was Karen giving her point of view necessary. It's from the Guardian of England. Buckingham Palace banned ethnic minorities from office rules. What it showed, first of all, I think she came to the crown when in 1953, when she was in Kenya. Yeah. And she's 25 years of age. And at that time, the atrocities committed by the British Army against the Kenyan people in Mau Mau, it was beyond disgrace. They took 1 million of them. I have the photos, and put them in concentration camps, castrated them using spanners, raped, murdered. 1 million of people who wanted their freedom. Yes. Then there was the Mau Mau insurrection, where they closed off all the exits, and the British army fired, so they couldn't come out, 1,000 people. And that was during her reign in 1953. All of that, she was in Kenya when that had started to happen. But when you want to look at the Queen herself, because you could say so many things she inherited, but she didn't inherit this. One, okay, we might forgive her for this part, where at the age of 6, there's a picture of her giving the Heil Hitler sign. And that is because Uncle George was a great admirer of Hitler and had actually gone to Germany and had a great procession in his name before the start of World War II. So there she is with her mama, I think it would be her mother, and her giving the Heil Hitler salute in the gardens in England. Yes. Okay, but you're 6, you might want to forgive her. But what you're not going to forgive her is for the 2 things I'm going to mention right now. And this is coming from the Guardian. Yeah. And what they're saying, when England in the 1960s, they decided to introduce laws to end race discrimination on the basis of employment and rental of accommodation, that you could not do that. You could report that to the Race Relations Board, you could go to the High Court, and you could pursue action. The Queen, who would meet, she has something called the Queen's consent, which is something that people don't know about, but she can use it when she does not support a bill, or she wants to amend a bill, or she wants a bill in her favor. But the papers were discovered at the National Archives as the Guardian's ongoing investigation into the royal family use of an arcane parliamentary procedure known as the Queen's consent to secretly influence the content of British laws. And this is what the Queen's chief financial manager in 1968, this is just before they passed the Race Relations Act, which has been since appealed and a new act passed. In 1968, he informed civil servants, and this is a quote: "It was not in fact the practice to appoint colored immigrants or foreigners to clerical roles in the household, although they were permitted to work as domestic servants. In fact, up to the 1960s, unashamedly, the Queen was exempt from the Race Relations Act. She met with her privy councillors, and the point being that if anyone complained of being discriminated on, again, based on their race, they could not go to the Race Relations Board, they could not go to the court, because they exempted her, and she agreed to that. And in the Queen's household, I'm taking it from the Guardian newspaper in England, they created 3 tiers which the Queen approved of. Tier 1, you had to be invited to the post. All those ladies in waiting and all those la-di-di-das who were near the royalty or had quasi-royal blood were the persons who could be appointed to Tier 1. Tier 2 were clerical workers, and those are the people who would have to engage with the public. Coloreds and foreigners, or they call them coloreds and foreigners, were not allowed. Look at it, it says here, Tyrone considers staff in the Queen's household to fall into one of 3 types: senior posts, which were not filled by advertising or any overt system of appointment, which would have presumably be accepted as outside the scope of the bill; 2 clerical and other office posts to which it was not in fact the practice to appoint colored immigrants or foreigners; and C, which is tier 3, ordinary domestic posts, for which colored applicants were freely considered, but which would in any event be covered by the proposed exemption. They were particularly concerned that if the proposed legislation applied to the Queen's household, it would for the first time make it legally possible to criticize the household. Many people do so already, but so on, so on. So they said, so they asked the Cardinal, asked that if you couldn't go to the court and you couldn't go to the Race Relations Board, what was your remedy? They couldn't tell you what the remedy was. And the Queen played a role in that. She was not, she was consulted by her privy councillors, and she agreed to that 3 tiers. That Queen, that same Queen that that wants to pretend, you know, stand aside from things politic. That same Queen. And the final point, because I heard a gentleman on one of those stations, and I had to turn it off because he was so ridiculous. You know, and he's so and a young man too, so desperately racist in his views, you know, and so reflecting the old empire thinking. Well, the Queen, when, and this is from very respected sources, when she realized that the empire, the sun was starting to set, the British Raj had come to end in the 1940s, and the West African countries, Ghana, Nigeria, and so on, were now protesting strongly for their independence, for their freedom from the yoke of colonialism. She realized that her empire was falling apart. So she came up with the Commonwealth. And then people say, oh, what a wonderful thing she did. Yes, but you know what the wonderful thing? That was her way, because she knew the empire was over. But at the head of that Commonwealth is always the Queen, and now it's the King. So that Queen, and another thing I would just mention, to show how out of touch these people are, that of William and Kate, so out of touch. They went to Jamaica to make their rounds of former colonies. And they went in a 1953 Land Rover that his mother had used when she had visited Jamaica when it was still a colony, and she would stand up and wave at the masses and adoring masses. And those two went in that same Range Rover, stood up and waving. It was such a disaster because when they came back from Belize and all these countries, I think they eventually realized that things are changed. And the final thing I would like to say on that, because, you know, I speak to the younger generation and they tell you, you know, what's the Queen? We are a republic. I never know any Queen had been head of my country. But what they've said to me is this. They said, you know, if you go in the London history, the London Museum of Natural History, person had said to me, and you were to remove all the things that they pillaged from other countries, diamonds and gold. They don't produce gold, they don't produce tea, they don't produce silk. So everything that would be stolen from these countries. If you were to remove them from there, there'd be nothing in that museum. And now these countries are demanding reparations, the same reparations that the UK government gave to the former slave owners when they lost their slaves, when they lost a human cargo. They were paid reparations, and they did that in Trinidad too, you know, and in the Caribbean. There are a lot of people here whose names, if you go to the UK archives, there's some of them still living here in Trinidad who acquired land down the islands all over, and they were paid reparations for loss of their slave labor, right? So I am saying to you that the day of the Queen are falling apart. The monarchy is just falling apart. And people are going to insist more and more so that reparations be paid, because all those palaces and all those crown jewels and all those diamonds that she has in her crown was pillaged on the back of people that, and you know, I mean, it's the suffering that they put these people through, who are our ancestors. We must pay homage. I'm sorry. The only thing I would say is she was there for 73 years. Her children behaved bad. And she was the one that was like a brother that kept things straight. But she never apologized. The Kenyan people came, I saw the pictures, asking her at least for an apology for how you treat. She would not do that. So that Queen has blood on her hands. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry for all those Anglophiles that are listening, which is of the older generation. And by the way, the tea you're drinking came from India, not from England. And you know what they started? That Opium War. Do you know what that Opium War was about? Because the trade between China and England was so much in favor of China, because China had the China had the tea, China had the silk, and England had nothing to offer in every place. So you know what they did? They forced on these people opium.
Yes.
Opium, not that there wasn't any at all, but they forced them to buy the opium and turned a whole generation of Chinese people into addicts. And that is when they agreed to give Hong Kong to England for them to stop the pillage on the Chinese people.
Yes.
That is their history.
Yes.
That is their history. And she knows it. And she contributed by her silence. And she contributed it by her actions herself. So I'm very sorry.
Me too.
All those Anglophiles there who want to sit down there and talk about what the Queen did, when they left all these countries, they built all these schools for us. They built all the hostels for us. Our education came starting with Eric Williams and other generations. That's where our education, many of these countries, they destroyed them and then walked away when they were of no use to them again.
Yes, I agree with you.
So you know how I feel about them.
Yeah.
But I
People
gave
were asking
proof.
me and they were telling me that oh gosh, David is a human being. I say you ain't understand history. You don't read nothing about history. You don't know the kind of things they did to people.
But
And
she herself continued it. That's what the
Yeah.
point is, when you say, oh, that's not her forefathers did. But she was part of it with that three-tier system, with
Yes.
keeping that whole thing of the Commonwealth. It was a way of keeping control. And if we as people, former colonial thing, we must be able to stand up for our rights. Why do we feel we have no rights? Why don't we feel that they owe us something? Why do we feel that we must always be begging? Oh God, don't say anything. Why? That's why you'll stay exactly where you are. Because you let them make you feel that you are. What did they do to all of us? Have ancestors who came from Africa. Most of us, or from India. So all of us have a shared history.
Yeah.
If I go back how many generations, and I'd rather go back to my grandfather was born in 1875.
Right.
So but what I mean is, let's stop this romanticizing of the Queen.
I agree with that. I don't know why. And people here who I don't know, like some people they don't know, so they're very ignorant. So I am cool with that because they don't know.
We
a lot of people,
educated them today.
yeah, some people think that I am being rough and I had hard to that. No. I know what they did and continue to do.
That's my point.
Yeah.
You see, if it were that we had to say she inherited the system and she tried to do her best.
Yes.
She apologized to these nations, like how Canada has apologized for what it did to the First Nation people.
Yeah.
What Australia finally did with the Aboriginal people, separating them from their parents and bringing them up in their social culture and destroying family lives. If the Australian people eventually stood up in Parliament and admitted what they did was wrong and apologized to these people, as did the Canadian Prime Minister, she had an opportunity to do that, and she never did. And she never did. So I'm very sorry. I cannot have the empathy for her and the wealth that she continued to enjoy.
Yes.
That by the way, that gold carriage that she sits in.
Yeah.
I read that it's pure gold, and I know they don't make gold in England. So I know they didn't go in any gold mine and got that there. They said it's $270 billion.
Mom,
She could talk with it, yes. And so I'm sorry. I'm sorry. This is how I feel about the Queen. God rest her soul.
Yeah.
But she got many opportunities to correct it because she did a lot of. But let me just say this: she knew how to correct the situation with her sister Margaret when she prevented Margaret from marrying the love of her life because she's divorcee. When she got the problems with everyone else of those children except Edward, she went into the first. She went into the new, into the modern world and recognized that Philip could have Camilla as his queen consort. Yes, she could recognize that. She could recognize Andrew, poor Andrew, but she had to strip him of everything because of God. He did too much, right?
Yes.
he did too much. But how when Princess Anne divorced twice, and she came into the real world. So if she could modernize there, let her modernize with us too. She knows how to modernize.
That's right. That's
okay,
right.
Richard.
Richard is here with us now. Good afternoon, Richard.
I'm the only time I'm listening to you all. Come on. Only woman jump in everything. It don't work so, you know.
We just
I know where we are. I know where we are.
Yes, I'm home. I'm home
Yes.
now. Yes, yes. Oh, but
Yes.
look at you, Karen. Look at you.
Don't
You
go
look
no
like
sad
Miss
at all. You don't have
Universe.
any
Oh,
skin.
you look like Miss Universe. I tell you, oh my dear me, Daddy Ma,
I
our
tell you.
ladies as glamorous as they come.
Yes.
Oh
Wonderful.
Lord. But you know what
Yeah.
I'm more concerned with, you think? That I
What's
have
that?
something of substance to offer the country. That's
Yeah.
No,
what we
no, we
want
know
to
that
do.
our viewers and all of us here in this program, we concluded that long time, Karen. That is why we look out for you so much. We
Yes.
know that
What
your
is yeah.
contributions are so important to all the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Quite meaningful. We support your views, a lot of them.
Well,
Um,
shedding light. What do you think of
no,
like I guess
I don't think you have that type. That is not part of your makeup to be a liar, Karen. Why you would lie? You didn't. I think you
I
probably
don't
are
think so.
allergic to lying. You may burst out in a rash. You might burst out in a rash if you
But I must remember that the next
try
time. You know, sometimes my daughter tells me something and I get real mad with her if she tells me it's like sort of like question whether I'm telling the truth. I say, Nicola, you know there's one thing gets your mother mad is do not accuse
Yeah.
me of not being truthful. I say if you want me to get real mad with you, is to do that. So she learned that lesson not to do that. Luckily she's not in Trinidad, so she didn't hear me.
As a politician, very good. As a politician,
We had so
yeah,
much to
there
talk
are other
about.
things. Yeah, but there are other tools that politicians use, especially honest, decent ones like yourself, Karen. While you wouldn't lie, you may not volunteer certain information that you ought not to volunteer at a particular time. The timing might be wrong to share something that was not asked. That's not lying.
No.
Refusing to answer something because you're not prepared to answer it yet. That's not lying. A lie is when you say something that you know to be incorrect and you went ahead and expressed that as if it was the truth. That is a lie.
Oh, well, I think politicians, because they it goes at I'll put it a little more nuanced than that. I would say politicians must be careful not to mislead the public. And you can mislead by not only what you say, but what you don't say. So, for example, you know, we could go back to the thing with the train one. I mean, that game playing back and forth. I mean, was that necessary? Or just level with the people, you know, level with us, because I think the big problem the government does have and continues to have is the trust and confidence of the people, that you can't quite know how much are they, you know, deflecting, twisting, and that's not good. That is not a good, that's not a good look. You have to be honest, you know, up to a point, but always give positive. But you see, they have a problem with the positive because they have poor implementation. The implementation is so weak that after a while, 7 years now, hearing the same thing over and over again, I think people are turned off, you know, they just say, that's the same old, same old. But if they were implementing, I think they could be more frank with the public because the public would have confidence in what they're seeing. What do you see to that?
All right. A few comments here I'm reading. They tend to comment, Karen. So just let me read a couple out of about 12 here, right? Karen is 100% on point. I am very impressed. Karen has always been straightforward. Very honest lady. The third one is a mixture boat. You want the third? You want the third one? You're strong enough, Karen.
That might be. Yes, but
I support Karen's views. They are very powerful. The sad thing is, politicians never speak like that or this way when they are in office. That's what that one said.
I understand why he would say that. But I don't know that is nice. I understand perfectly why he says that. And I know that that is a very fair comment to make. And if I were a member of the public, I would say the same, I would have those same misgivings. But one of the things I would say, coming back to that comment, which is a very valid and very fair comment, is that we have had ministers like Wendell Motley, that I recall, I told him many times that, you know, when I was never in politics, I wasn't even thinking of being in politics at the time. But I remembered when we had come, when you were the Minister of Finance and we were in a really terrible streets, you would come out to the national community, to the public servants, to the trade unions, and tell them you've got to tighten the belt. But he said, if you do that and you follow, I assure you there's going to be light at the end of the tunnel. And he would, and every week, or it seemed like that every week, and he would meet with them. And he built up, I think, that by being straightforward, but saying there's light. So if you made the sacrifice, he didn't just make broad statements, you know, and also he had the respect of people. So I think you can be, but you have to implement. You can't say you're doing something. Okay, so when I was in government, if I could say, in the 2.5 years that I served there, I had the Revenue Authority Act was in the Parliament, but Mr. Manning called the election. So I had reached to the point of it being in the Parliament. The property tax was passed, and that's the Property Tax Act that they are using today. The Financial Intelligence Unit legislation was passed. In fact, the then Attorney General said to me, the second one, Jeremy said, Karen, you know something, if we just did all the work that you sent in the Law Commission to send to Parliament, we wouldn't be doing no other work. At that time, I met with the credit unions, and I was working with the central bank in doing the legislation. And it was because Mr. Manning demanded that of us. Mr. Manning demanded that of us. And he said, we have 3/5 now, and we've got to use it. So I think it depends on the leadership. Mr. Manning was a workhorse. He expected nothing less from us. And many people may not have liked him for whatever reason, but I don't think people can say he did not. At the end of the day, with 2020 vision that they now have, that he had the country's interests at heart, and he is the one that has us as a natural gas economy. He is the one. And he is the one that did the managed fruit of the dollar. He is the one. Give him his credit for what he did. Those are two huge, and also tertiary education. He must be given the credit for those 3 interventions. Obviously, what happened, Richard?
Oh no, I'm muted.
Oh,
Yeah, he ought to be given the credit for those things. Mr. Manning indeed was a workhorse. No one could challenge that. No one could challenge that. He loved his job. He always said that. He loved being prime minister. He had a vision for the country, and he wanted to make that vision a reality because he believed that vision would have improved the quality of life for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And to the extent of the implementation of that vision that partly became a reality, people today are living a much better lives as a result of it. And if he was able to get the whole 2020 thing done as he would have liked to by 2020, we'd have been a much better place today. We'd have been like, I don't want to say Bahrain, but perhaps closer to Singapore, because that is how he was looking at the country.
It's
he
true.
was comparing, yeah, and he was saying if they could do it, why not us?
That was his attitude, you know.
Yeah, that was his attitude, and he was really pushing to get us there. And one thing I could never, up to this day, label onto him is that he was corrupt.
For sure.
People trusted him. Let me tell you something. Not because you didn't find somebody with corruption means that you should trust that person. You know? There are those in Parliament right now and in government whom, as far as I'm aware, you have found nothing surrounding or related to corruption about them, but the people don't trust them. So on this one, it appears as though they have lost the trust and confidence in the people of this country on the basis of dishonest expressions, never coming clean with the public, telling the public one thing today on a particular matter and then telling them something else on that same matter several days later. Just like you remember Coleman Burke, he told the country just before an election, I could see clearly now the economy is turning around. And then he went further, he said, it's not turning around, you know. It has turned around. Remember that? And right after the election, which was about a week after, he was in Barataria, I won't forget that. And then there he was rolling out all the problems with the economy that he claimed 2 weeks ago that had turned around. And I said, this guy's for real. They don't believe the journalists when they come here, they're going to represent this information to the whole country. So why you said that there and you come here and saying something completely contrary to what you said 2 weeks ago? It just don't make sense. So people over the years, these things build up into what it is today. Huge dislike and disagreement with members of this administration.
I think one of the most current examples of that would be when one of the journalists, who I won't call the name, but it was televised, asked him at the spotlight on the economy, asked Minister Imbert, he said, for 7 years, you've got the figures wrong on production. Actually, before I came on, I went and looked to see production levels have dropped significantly. So it's the prices that are keeping us up there. So he said, every year you've gotten it wrong. It's not a year in the 7 years that you've been minister that you have gotten the production on gas right. And of course, that goes to revenue because you're basing your revenue based on price and production. And you know what his answer was? I mean, I would just say it. He then said, well, he relies on what the Ministry of Energy gives him. So you threw a fellow cabinet colleague or a ministry under the bus because you're not taking responsibility. So you're distancing yourself from it. So you might as well distance yourself from all the data you get because it's coming to you from the different ministries. And then he went on to say, but he thinks it will get better under this new, I don't know if he said exactly this new minister, but basically what he was saying is that Franklin Can gave him bad data, and that was the bad data that he gave us. I mean, you're not ashamed to do that to a colleague? You know, you sit down there and you and he has passed, he's no longer with us to defend himself. And you throw him under the bus for your own ego, and then want to say, and don't take any responsibility. You expect people, I'm sorry. That is all of these things that make people have the confidence and respect that should be there that is lacking. And that's what he did the other day, you know?
Yeah.
So
they don't care about anybody. They would sink anybody, they would destroy anybody to have their way. That's the only way they see it, you know. And you know, we were told not to fall in love with office. The behavior I'm witnessing now is a clear explanation for that, because when you're in love with office, what you're witnessing now is how people behave when they're in love with office, which is not good. So we were told not to fall in love with office, and for good reason. We've seen it now. We've seen it. They will condemn anybody, criticize anybody, condemn anything, prolong anything, just to get a one-up on somebody because they want to protect an image, how they come across, and they hope people believe that they are speaking the truth and that type of thing, and they don't lose the support of the people. For them, it's only numbers, you know. Numbers.
Talking about numbers, CSO numbers. But before I go to the CSO numbers, because I was looking at what the central bank was saying about the state of the economy and talking about the unemployment rates and the inflation rate. You know, and all of this, I guess statistics and damn statistics. It's really true that you can manipulate that data. Eh? Now, I'm not saying the central bank did that, but if you don't have, go a little deeper and try to do some interpretation, then you can be perhaps misled. For one thing, he did say that everybody's talking about the private sector, you know, and I hear so many of many economists and people who I think, you know, are highly regarded, talk about more private investment or private participation in the economy. That is true, but the point about it, even the central bank governor in his report was saying that where the private sector participates is in distribution, not in production, in distribution. And that has been, they are risk averse. They are risk averse. If you want to know, and the best predictor of how they'll behave in the future is how they've always behaved in the past. They want the government to take all the risk.
All the risk.
What they want to do is be retailers. They want to buy, they want to sell, they want to, and then they want to bring in the peas and the different things and can it in here, and then say the manufacturing, right? But everything they might, so-called, except for some exceptions, they will be, but generally speaking, they're canning the stuff and they're distributing. That's what they're doing distribution, or using up, as I've said time and time again, and the Central Bank Inspector of Financial Institutions said since the end of 2021, the food import bill has increased by 20%, right? So when you tell people, let the private sector,
Mr. Solomon?
I don't know his name, I just know the title.
Solomon, I think the inspector.
Yeah, but what I believe it is he does the fiscal report. But what, sorry, not the fiscal monetary, because the Central Bank is about doing the monetary policy. My mistake. But my point is this, that when you say private sector, that sounds really nice. And we get the government out of, it is true, the government with WASA, they send VSEP, VTEP, then the same people, they bring them back because of political patronage. I understand what they're saying about that. But you cannot say the private sector when everything that the private sector has shown you has been one where they are very risk averse. They are not prepared to take the risk. They want the government to take the risk unless it's a foreign investor, but the local market. Yeah, and the fact of the matter is everything, as I've said time and time again, has been laid on a platter for them. And one of them, as I have said on many times already, is the ease of doing business. Why is it that in Jamaica that you can open up a business in 3 days? And that's what they did when they asked the IMF. That's some special arrangement, not standby. I don't know exactly the terminology, but they could open up a business in 3 days. Why is it so hard? Because they don't want you to open up a business. They want them to open up the business. They want them to have everything. Everything must be for them. And this government, by its policies, has facilitated that thinking. And we cannot, let me just say this, because I feel very strongly about it. You know, one thing about Lloyd Best, I may not have agreed with everything he's taught me, or because he did teach me on 2 separate occasions. I may not have agreed with everything that he said, but one thing he did say, critical thinking. You have to think for yourself. So those people who say private sector, privatization, and they almost like they're singing for their supper. You want to tell me the truth? I almost think they're looking for consultancies to tell you the truth. I really, sometimes I'm so maybe I'm such a cynic, right? But the reality is that private sector that we have in this country with our food import bill, somebody wanted from this, the Supermarket Association. Now, I don't know if he did a scientific study, so let me just put that out there on the table. But he said 85% of the foods in the supermarkets are imported. 85%. And you have an agri-forum, you have this thing always, this big show. But what you supposed to be doing, you don't have
already, you know. Huh? That already,
yeah, but this is the point I want to make to your viewers, listeners, okay, Richard? Because, you know, I think we have to think outside the box. It does not have to be the Keynesian approach, which is that when in times of depression and hardship, it is the government that has to really take the major role to get the economy going, employment, people spend money, and it goes down the line. We don't have to go that way, but neither do we have to go the Chicago Boys, which was shown also to not be the answer when Reagan and Thatcher and all of them approached it, used it, it's collapsed on them. The money did not trickle down to anybody. Right? And deregulation caused the 2008-2009 global financial crisis when these financial companies were operating outside the purview of the banking system and creating all kinds of products that caused a global financial crisis. So I am saying we have to, why can't we create our own solution? It has to be, and in my respectful opinion, if this country is to deal with the income inequality, if this country is to see people coming off of this dependency, which some people love to encourage it among certain groups and then look down at them, what you're supposed to do is create micro entrepreneurs out of them. And don't just say you're giving them the land, you give them, we have the people from the ministry and the faculty and all of that can help them to go from the farm to the table. Take these young men. We have plenty land belonging to the state. Go and set up hydroponics. So they do like what Holland did. Send somebody to Holland, study how they do it, and set up a real business thing, a value-added business in agriculture and agro-industries. There is so much that can be gained. That is what they're supposed to be doing. And stop giving everything to those who already have. Everything you have done, your private-public partnership, who can participate? And all those agency renters that you have, all those people renting, they could go to the bank with rent. You're keeping them there, and you know you're keeping them there.
Because they can't get the equity of the place to get them up. They can't go to the bank with rent.
Yeah, so they have to be going and wave a flag, and then have to go and be involved in the informal sector all the time.
And then they make a call to beg people. That's what they want to have here. And then they pretend they tweak a little something for you, and you must be beholden to them for the rest of your life.
Not only that,
it's
not just that, you know. It is the same point that David made, where he said, it may sound like it's two different points, but you know, yes, do not tell me anything about being a lawyer, right? Lawyers tend to think like that. Look at a principle. So do not tell me anything about being a lawyer. In the same way that they have a lot of Trinidadians who say, no, don't say anything about the queen, and all that thing, right? Because we don't have enough self-worth. We don't have a thing to determine that we are entitled to be paid for all of the years of slavery. When the reparations they paid to the Japanese American citizens that they had to pay while the German American citizens were locked up, and they were the ones you were fighting. You were the ones that set up the state of Israel as a reparation for the Jews when the large percentage of the population there were Arab, right? You are the ones that gave these people money to compensate them for losing us as slaves. You don't have a problem. You are the ones that destroyed Haiti. Macron sat on there, and you destroyed Haiti to tell them, okay, you want to be independent? Well, you have to pay us. And then when they couldn't, the treasury was dry just from paying back that debt. They handed it over, I think, to Citibank in the United States, that double the interest rate. And you don't see anything wrong with what you have done, but we must sit down there and take it because we do not think enough of ourselves. We think that we deserve to be treated like that. But let me tell you something. You do not deserve to be treated like that. You do not deserve to be acting as if you are supposed to be at the bottom of the scale. You are not to be treated like that. And this government has to do much more for you than platitudes and talking about you being a cockroach and talking about family values, and take you and this is a country. This is my last point on that. We did not build up out of America, which everybody was essentially immigrants, you know, because you know that Ben Carson said that slaves were also immigrants. It's so sad when you hear your own people saying that. Dr. Ben Carson, who was the one that did the first successful separation of in Australia. Yeah. He is the one to say that you and I, our forefathers are immigrants. That's to tell you how they're so brainwashed. But what I'm saying, and what they give him HUD, housing development, a brilliant surgeon like him. But that's what he's supposed to say about. But what I'm trying to say is...
He's a Republican, you know how they think.
Yeah, but you could be a Republican and don't have to be
I know that, but if you talk sensibly, you may not qualify to be in that party. So, I think you have to remember. You have to be outrageous. Yeah. Well, let me tell you.
What I'm saying is, We are not America, a land of immigrants. We are not Europe, thousands of years of civilization and fighting each other, car done. They always fighting. World War I, World War II, go in people's country, take it over, kill them, fight them, opium war. They never see warmongering like those people. Fight, they go in Canada, kill all people, go in South America, kill all people, go in Australia, kill all people, they kill out each other, always fighting. And when they can't fight each other, they fight wars by proxy. They go in Iraq, mash up the country and walk out. They go to Afghanistan, mash up the country and they walk out. You know, that's that. They go Libya, which was doing extremely well for the people, mash up the country and walk out. We have to understand that this government is your government and they're not doing you a favor, and they need to stop giving all the all the benefits to a small group of people and start helping you at the bottom there. Okay, because you need that help and you need to have the self-worth that they don't have, not given you and have taken away from you to make you think that you are not worthy of help. And I am telling you, asking me if I was in government, I absolutely would do that. I would absolutely, because it's something I feel very strongly about, creating a nurturing environment. I would absolutely see about that.
I believe you again. I have no doubt that if you're in government now, you would fight that. I believe that. You said the rich people, they are not risk takers. The businessmen, they are not risk takers. They want to get everything on a platter. You said that, right?
Mr. Manning used to tell me that too.
Right.
Mr. Manning used to say that to me.
Well, this government, Karen, this government is the platter. You know what I tell you? They wear everything on a silver platter. Well, I have such a platter now, and the things are being delivered. And that's why you have to speak, because you are speaking now, because you are witnessing what is happening, and it is coming at the expense of the rest of the people of Trinidad and Tobago, especially the poor man. And it's hard to restrain yourself in the face of this and say nothing. How could you? And yet still, when they want more votes, they want to come to you, the small man whom they have ignored and neglected, and come to you with some stupid talk about they wanted energy and they're looking to secure energy arrangements for here when 2026.
I want to talk about that a moment when you finish. Go ahead.
Well, let's go right there. I curtail immediately what I was saying, Karen.
I want you to go ahead, because then I think the fourth command is she is only she talking on the show or what? So you
no, Karen, I have other days on. They just get the full of me.
David, is that not the truth? They say, oh God, when Tesheira come on, it's like she dominating the airwaves.
No.
Oh.
We appreciate all that you say, and we have proof of that, because when I leave here, like tonight, all into tomorrow, they talk about Karen was so correct, and Karen, you get a lot of.
I hope they're listening.
So
have self-worth, have self-worth. Don't let them take that from you. Don't let them think that you're not worthy. Don't let them do that to you. That's what I'm telling you. Right? Now, you talked about energy and so on. So the two things I wanted to
ask you before you raise the two things, Karen.
PDP and Farley.
Nah. It's on the energy and the trip with the Prime Minister, his press conference.
You have to talk about that, you know.
That is what I want to talk about. I want to go there first, Karen. Is that all right? All right, let's go there first. Let's go.
Okay, so what troubled me, and I do not have the answer, but I am actually putting the question again. And the reason I'm putting the question again is because the Prime Minister made his trip and specifically met with the head of ProMan and also Shell. I think he met with Shell in these two countries, whichever, Switzerland or wherever else he went. Now, ProMan is a big player in the ammonia business. They control the urea, the ammonia, the fertilizer, which is so critical now with your countries dealing with food security and those issues that, and those prices have gone through the roof. Now, what my question is, and I asked for the answer, as far as I was aware, I took part, I said it before, but I'm asked, reason it again, and could they please answer, because I do not have the answer. Last year, the government through CL Financial and CLICO, because the central bank still has the CLF companies under Section 44 arrangements until all the debt is paid. So it was Clico and CL Financial that sued Proman Trinidad Limited and Proman Barbados Limited. And I was called as a witness. I gave a witness statement as to the whether or not the sale by Lawrence Dupre of his shares, of CLF shares in Proman, and the sale of the shares of which will Clico, which was holding in trust to Proman for $46 million on the 3rd of February 2009, after the MOU had been signed with the government, and it was agreed, among other things, that any sale had to be, first of all, we had to know that they owned the Proman, and we had to agree to the sale. So he did this behind the backs of the government. We only found out about it after the deal was done. And so the government, through CLF and Clico, went to court, and it was successful. It's a 275-page judgment. And in which I gave evidence, I said that we were not even aware that CLF and Clico owned 51% shareholding in Proman. And the 51% is very important, because that the shareholders agreement says that when you want to have 51%, you have really controlling shares, and you cannot see, there are controls over who you can sell to and other factors, which I can't recall now. But the 51% is what CLF and Clico own combined. And I gave a witness statement, which I said that that sale was, first of all, it was an undersale of the value, which is way below the value. CL Financial had no authority to sell Clico's shares in Proman because they were holding it in as a trustee, and he had breached his trust arrangement with Clico Energy. That's what Clico. And thirdly, so it was also the court set aside that sale. It set aside the sale and said that the government is to pay the Proman the 46 million, so set it off what Proman owes the government, which was something like 100 and something million, because when they did evaluation of what the value of those shares were at the time, it was far, far, far in excess of the 48 million, which in itself showed that it was not a bona fide sale. So the arrangement, as I understood it in that judgment, which I have read and I haven't seen any appeal, is the government is supposed to own, through CLF and Clico, 51% shareholding in Proman. That is what they're supposed to have. And they are supposed to have the controlling share in Proman Limited, which has methanol, ammonia, and all of that. So I am at a loss as to what the Prime Minister went up with Proman. Who owns Proman? Doesn't the government, Clico, CL Financial, own those shares? Or did you sell those shares to Proman? I don't know. And if that is so, why would you do that when ammonia, methanol, urea prices are going through they are sky high? Why would you do that? So there's a whole, I don't,
but
and I'm
have
not
the effect of increasing the share value.
Right. So what is the position with Proman? Did we not set off, because we didn't have to pay them anything. They had so much money for us. You had to take away the 48 million from what they had for us, and they had to pay us and return the shares
by $48 million.
Minus 40 million and return it to thing. And that was what was the agreement. And by that act, we, through CL Financial and Clico, would own 51% shareholding in Proman Trinidad, which is
controlling interest.
Yes. So I cannot understand what is going on. Why the Prime Minister meeting with Proman as if Proman is in charge, as if Proman has all the shares? I don't know. And I don't know that it was appealed. So I am not coming to a conclusion, but that is why we don't have trust and confidence. I would like you, Mr. Prime Minister, Mr. Minister of Energy, please tell us what is the situation with Proman, given that judgment, which was delivered by Justice Ravindra. And you can go on the website of the judiciary and go back to 2019, not 2019, 2021, he delivered it. September 2021, he delivered that judgment. And I would like
Did
to know.
Proman appeal that decision?
But that is what I am not aware of. I am not aware that there was any appeal. I'm not aware of any appeal. So if it is no appeal was made, it means right now the government
if there was
supposed
an
to.
appeal, there's a high likelihood that you would have been aware of it.
But the country should be aware because it's a lot of money you're talking about. That is the energy sector.
I know that, but
going
given
first.
that you yourself had acted as a witness or participated in that
I
trial,
was a witness,
you would have known if you had appealed. Yes, so that I inform you somehow that the matter has been appealed.
And you know what struck me though, I will tell you. I mean, this is probably gets me in trouble too. I did ask somebody, I said, whatever happened with the Proman matter? I'm not hearing anything. And the person just answered me very flippantly. And I said, I didn't know. That's a big thing. Is it they don't want to hand over CL Financial to CL Financial because the value of Proman shares are so big and the potential to make all that money in 2025 is such that the government could be paid off? Or does the government want to? I don't know. I don't know. There's something in that story.
The government could have been paid off, Karen. The government could have been paid off since in 2016 after PwC had done a plan to settle the debt, which you're going to be paid in 120 days with money from within the company, land in Tobago and some other assets, which the Minister of Finance had instructed them to do a plan. And when the plan was done, he didn't even want to go through the plan. So it informed me and others way back then, just like what you say now.
But now we have a judgment of the court.
On the radio, they were holding game in tongue. Yeah, but if they acknowledge it as you're expressing it, it puts the company in a better position to settle a matter with the government. The government
but not only that. All that money that we should have. So that's a judgment, you know. This is not, this is a judgment of the High Court. And if you go back and if anybody wants to look at the judiciary and then go back to CL Financial CLICO and go to the end of the judgment, you will see what the order that the court made. So I can't understand what is going on.
We'll have another set of people in office and they will share with this country the type of butch job that has been done to the people of Trinidad and Tobago, in particular as it relates to CL Financial, Petrotrin, and several other critical
companies. In the interest of full disclosure, you know, I inherited a few shares from my husband, and I could never find out how much those shares were worth. Initially, somebody put on a headline 11 million. I don't even think it was worth $1 million at the time. But I'm putting it out there that every action, this is why I want the Prime Minister to release the CL Financial report. And I especially want him to say what they said about Karen Tesheira as the minister, what she did wrong, and never sought after her interim, because Coleman was appointed by the opposition party, not by the PNM, and he has the report. It's been signed off, and he knows that I have been cleared because nothing I did, but I don't want to persecute and prosecute that matter now. I just needed to put that on the table. But what I would really like the government to let us know is the status of Proman. What happened after that judgment? What has happened? What is going on? Please let us know, Minister of Energy. What is it? Because he just came out from Switzerland and said he met with David Cassidy or whoever it is from Proman. And if you go on Proman website, I mean to say you're real impressed with Proman, you know. I mean, you know, so I just want to know. I want you to tell us. Please tell us what has happened since that judgment was given. What has the government done?
We need to know. I agree. And there are several other things we need to know as a country. And I don't feel the answers will come from the people who hold office now.
But
somebody else within our party would have to take the lead, and when the questions are put to them, they may be more inclined to reveal what the truth is.
Yeah, and or somebody in Parliament, maybe the opposition in Parliament, you know, you have questions.
But when it comes to ruling power, I can't talk for them as a member of the ruling party.
No, but if you want to get the information, and be
Oh no,
and
they
they want to
could
be
try. They
realistic.
could raise it. Yeah, they could. They
That's
could.
what I'm saying. And they have to
Yeah,
answer, you see.
yeah.
They have to
But I am
answer. They don't have to
speaking.
answer you and me, you know.
No. Of course, they must answer in Parliament. The thing
Right.
about
That's what I'm saying.
it doesn't always come as answers, you know. They now have embraced a response as an answer, you know. They come and tell you, well, they come and tell you, now, well, you're always talking about Barbados and Guyana. If you want to go there, leave, go there. I'm the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, you know, that's the answer. No, that was
But
a
I really
response.
think we need
That
to
was
find
not
an
the
answer.
answer to
I
the
myself
question
want
I
to
was
know.
asking, you know. Huh?
I really do want to know the answer to that, because
No,
something is not right.
I'm just equipping you to let you know that you may get a response. It may not necessarily constitute an answer. So you have to be prepared for that too. So they're going to say, we answered that already, but it wasn't. It was a response. Anyhow, I listened to the Prime Minister's press conference today, right?
Yeah.
And trying to justify why he had to leave the country to do what he did with this. About a whole week touring. You know, he was in a Bentley. Now, for people, that's a Rolls Royce, eh? You see, he was in a Bentley and then they went in a bus. So it might have been a Bentley car and a Bentley bus. But you know what I mean? You all work that out. That's pretty small, man. They call that communication. All the prime ministers out there with a non-air conditioned bus, sweating and fanning, and they're driving them.
No, but that would not be right,
It would
Richard.
not
That would
be.
not be right. He's representing the country. He's representing
hold
us.
on.
So he
No,
has to
hold on.
represent us.
I am thinking he was saying, they say, oh, they take private jet and so on. I don't have a problem with that. You're the head of a country. What if you flew from one country to the next or one state to the next on a private jet? If a prime minister can't do that, another businessman do that on a daily basis, then what kind of country is the leader of? So I don't have
Not
a
only
problem
that,
with that.
what message are you sending?
One second. My point is, when you have to answer something like that, his response to me was trying to communicate to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Look at the pressure he was placed under. I was placed in a bus and they fed us and we ate. I think it should have been we ate. Eh? We say and we ate, you know. But I don't know to say, but to me it was silly, because there are some things as a prime minister you don't have to respond to. It's only obvious as a prime minister.
What was the question that was asked?
He asked himself the question. He said he heard that.
What question did he ask himself?
He saying that, and what he heard them saying was he take a private jet and other people to move from one place to the next, and then he answered it. So he said no. They took a Bentley, and I'm saying that's a Rolls Royce, and then they were moved to a bus, and they fed us, and we ate. That is as close as
did he tell you what he had? What did he tell you what he had?
He didn't tell you he had a long.
That's an important part that he had left out.
I mean, you know how
that's an important part of what he did.
Huh? Move as smooth as real luxurious buses, you know that. But
of course, but I'd like to know what he had to eat. You know what I mean? Why? Because you want to know
what not to order, given what he said.
No, they have courses. They have courses. You know. Anyway.
I see. Oh, no,
but what else you wanted to say about what he said, though? Let's be.
Yes, what I wanted to say about what he said was, Karen, he did not make the case to justify why he had to go on that trip. Because here what the outcome was. I was listening. I'm saying, okay, went on the trip, right? They're talking to us now through the media. Tell us, convince us why it was necessary for you to go.
And he said, Zoom.
Yeah, so he could have done a Zoom. He said, well,
he could have done it virtually.
Come one place. But everywhere, they are looking to do more research or whatever for exploring for gas. And Trinidad and Tobago is open for that, because we need to explore, to wring, in other words, the rag dry. Wherever we can find gas, we need to get it to help us sustain our supply going forward. You could have do that from home. You didn't have to go and meet with them for them to tell you that, and you telling them you're open to that. The other thing is that, and to conclude that point, he said that this agreement, the government told them that was very encouraging, and the government wishes to encourage them. And as he went to Shell, the conclusion was the government wishes to encourage them. I don't know if they say themselves, you know. Then he spoke about what is our BP. And now he's a marketing person, you know. He's a marketing person, you know. Shell is the biggest in I think in one part, and BP is the big. Shell I think is the biggest in shares, something. BP is the biggest in the production, of one other part or something like that. And then he's pro man, so he's now sharing with the country who big and who small and why they're big and why they ain't big. But he's saying to me, all that is fluff. That is irrelevant, how big they are. Tell us why you went. And at the end
That's
of it,
true.
Hear what he said. Two things. He said the country is now benefiting from 1 billion when they started conversations sometime back in 2016, 17, and that money is coming in. Which means this trip had nothing to do with the coming in, the inflows of that money. The inflows didn't start now. That arrangement for that inflow took place a long time ago, but we tried to mix it as though this trip triggered what is coming in, which has come in already, and it's already here. So but you want to mix it to convey to listeners as though this trip was directly related to that outcome. That's not true. Go back and listen to it. He himself was stepping on his own message. And I said, but what this man really said?
I thought you wouldn't say stepping on his own mess, you know.
Well, Karen, I don't think you'd have bring mess to the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago.
No, honestly, I thought I was going to say.
When you drill into it, one could
It was a mess.
come close to that, but it was his message, but it was a poor one. It was a poor message, Karen, and I want people, you see, when we talk here, others don't know how to understand what they should understand until they listen to us, and it's only then they could dissect it in a way to say, oh, I understand that is so. I want to
that's
say
the rule.
He did not make the case to justify why he had to leave the country to go. In other words, he brought nothing to the table today from what he said that informed me that it was necessary for him to be there.
So then, you know what makes you conclude that? You know what makes you conclude? He went there for, there were the other things that were in the agenda that he wishes not to.
Other things.
Yes, and one of them that concerns me the most is pro-man.
Yeah.
One that concerns me the most is pro-man.
Yeah. But here the biggest takeaway from it, Karen. This is the achievement part of it. But hear this. In other words, he said he did it and he will do it again because he has to do what is required to secure this country to make sure we have gas supply from now on 2026 and 2026 and beyond. If you had to try to do that, again, you could engage the people in those conversations this year, later on this year, next year, in those conversations to help secure what needed to be secured for them. The next part about that is this. He's saying he had to go because they're the big players. But then hear this. I tell you, stepping on your message.
No, we big. He's saying how big we were.
Yeah, but he's saying how, here we saying the size of investment they have here. Yeah. Now tell me, if you have a big investment here, right?
Can they come to us?
Your capital outlay here is very high. Therefore, you wouldn't just want to walk there and leave that. I'm supposed to be able to stay in my diplomatic center and tell Minister Sobers, well, we have analyzed capital outlays here, and they need this operation going forward as much as we need it. So to make sure leverage stay on our side, tell them, you will try to convince the Prime Minister to meet with them if they were to come to Trinidad. So in making it sound as though I'm readily available either. So give them the assurance that you will do everything in your power to make sure they meet. So give me a day when they come in and leave it up to me to make it work out. No, of course the Prime Minister and I work that out already, you know. So when they come now, Mr. Young had to say, well, come, you know, because his time is so they have to come now to protect their investment. And in a situation like that now, we have the upper hand, but you leave here knowing they have all this capital outlay placed here, but you're going across to make us feel they're doing us a favor.
Didn't he leave here and go Australia to get a boat first?
I think a boat or two from neighboring Australia and
He went and made the trip?
I think he made the trip here himself and Minister Sobers. Well, you know, Minister Sobers tells us, because when he went to the Joint Select Committee in Parliament for the Tobago matter, he said, I remember Minister Sobers said, no, he said, no, I was in Trinidad. I think I was in the Hat. He said, no, you went to Tobago. And And then the Prime Minister said, oh yes, it was in Tobago. So Minister Young, I mean, come on, Mr. Sidekick. I just call him Minister Sidekick. So I don't know nothing about Energy Minister. That is a kind of tag team. You see coming at you now. So Young probably speaks the truth. I do not believe Young. The Prime Minister, I guess, tries to speak the truth. And probably he believes he's always doing that. I can't challenge that. But I want to say to him, I don't believe him. And that happens quite often. So that I believe that all those meetings could have taken place here. And yes, I agree that we could have sent people across, but not the Prime Minister. Especially Karen.
So Noray, Mr. Noray.
412, 415. What's your mother told? People, he said people shooting and killing you in this country every day. And you are talking about gas for 2026.
So Mr. Noray, if I were listening to you as an objective listener to the show, I would then start to think, but there had to be another reason why you need that.
Yeah.
And we leave it at, and we can only leave it at that because we were not there. And we were not on the agenda. We were not given a copy of any other business, A or B, but we do want an answer about Proman. Because
I would say this to Karen, to back what you said, what we were fed today through the media in that press conference, I want to say we are yet to be told about what the purpose of the trip really was about.
Okay, so I think we have made the Monsieur Noray. I think the point has been drilled into the minds that there must have been an A or B of which on the agenda, which may have been actually the number one reason for which we do not know. Okay, and if we leave it to the members of the Republic, so we can use Paria as a good example of why we question what this government does. The Commission of Inquiry into Paria, you read, the man said he had no pens. He said he had no pencils. He said he had no paper.
No paper.
He said he had no furniture. And he had one lady doing three people's jobs. That is why, from the time I heard Sir Dennis Morrison, KC now, King's Counsel, highly respected, first-class honors from UB, came first in his year in Jamaica Law School. You don't ever get 11 A's. To get a merit, you need 9 out of 11. He got 11 out of 11. He's about one of 3 in the history of the law school. Maybe it's more that ever accomplished that. Was a Court of Appeal judge, chairman of the Council of Legal Education. When I saw he resign, I said, there's more in that motor than the pestle. And then now,
and he did say that. Yeah.
I said that there's something not right there. And I have a feeling they're regretting putting that man they put there at the chair of the Commission of Inquiry because apparently they do not have the level of control that they may wish to exercise. The man embarrassed them, and they go on running all over the place, pretending. I mean, it is disgraceful. And you wonder why Monsieur Noray asked what was on that agenda besides what we were told, because we don't know what was achieved. You have to understand the level of the cynicism with which we speak. You give
when he left that press conference,
a lot of things. You love that press conference.
No, when he left that today, no, I didn't. But it informs us about what was not said that should have been said, that have us speaking about it now. When he left that press conference,
he knows something you're saying, you know.
No, Karen, you will have your suspicion and I'll have mine. There are certain things
we can't
say. Just as
we cannot. No.
Yeah. And I want to let them know I do not want reaction protocol exactly what transpired, but we cannot say it, Karen. We cannot say it.
No, we do not want pre-action protocol letter. We have fair comment, which gives us a lot of coverage, fair comment, but pre-action protocol letter, no, we do not want it. No.
And they'll have people line up. They'll have people line up Let me tell you, they're going to hit us for one big six and slam down. Listen, they're going to hit us. King Council, I mean, you take it easy. Senior Council, they're going to hit you, everybody in the country. I lead a place somewhere else, and one of the persons they wanted to have on the board, because that person was in a spot about it, they sent 4 attorneys from the Attorney General office. You know. 4, you know. Yeah. People in that movement, in that sector said, an attorney raised up and said, President, this is unheard of here, no? He said, has something more happened here, no? I said, I believe it has something more here, but we follow the Lord, and we don't work under men, we work under God.
Yeah, but you remember what it say, give unto Caesar what is Caesar's.
That's
remember,
it. Yes,
I remember. So
I
you have to pay your taxes.
They can do what I want. They can do whatever they want. Once
okay,
I'm
you're gonna give me
God, I'm good. I'm good.
No force something against me. You know how much I find PNL people love to tell you that. No force gathered against me shall prosper, whatever it is. You know, that's something I noticed about a lot of and sometimes the same people giving you must watch out, you know, because those same people, that's from my experience. And
No,
some
right.
of them, some
you're
of
right,
them,
Karen. You're right.
And nobody's true.
Me, I pray for hours every day for years.
You do?
Not
That's
3
good.
years, not 7 years, all my life. My mom would always say, even as a big man, she said, how you actually go on your knees and pray? That is so different but admirable. That is because I'm a genuine believer. So I don't care. I say what I have to say here. You're not going to control me because you can help someone improve on the economic standing in the country. Take that and rock so give it to somebody else. I said twice since 2015, I don't want any, and I'm not a carrot dancer. You remember that, Daddy Mac?
Of course, of course.
Daddy Mac.
That's 2015,
Daddy
you know.
Quiet, huh?
No, that was 2015, you know.
You said that?
And I was one of the leading voices that helped this administration be the administration today, you know. And I said in 2015, I am not a carrot dancer. I saw your whole lot.
What does a carrot dancer mean?
No, you know, to dance carrot with people. And they have you dancing to the, you know, that you feel like get close to the carrot and then move it and dangle it.
Yes.
So when you start trying to hold the carrot and you're actually dancing in your efforts to try to get this carrot, I tell them, take the carrot and put it where the monkey. Oh no, Jesus.
Oh Lord.
The Prime Minister can finish that for you, not me. The Prime Minister can finish that for you, not me.
Yeah, David, listening to us.
It takes a mouth like that to do that, not mine. Yeah.
Mr. Noray, I want to talk a little bit about the PDP and Farley Augustine. I think we need to talk a little bit. I want to hear what your views are.
Everybody and everything else we do, Karen, you want to lead or you want me to
start? No. I want you to start, and then I will say, and I hope that somebody that represents both camps, especially the Farley Augustine camp, will be listening to at least what we are going to see. I hope that they are. Well, I don't know what your point of view is, but what I would like to say.
Let me tell you, I think that's a good start. I hope the camp of Farley Augustine, or Augustine, as I hear them say it.
It's Augustine.
I hope they are listening. So you want me to go first? Yeah.
Go first.
I want to say first of all, we all know Watson Duke, right? Number one is Watson Duke's party. We know that. There's no secret about that. It's Watson Duke's party. 2, Watson Duke is the leader of the party. 3, Watson Duke is the deputy chief secretary of the THA. Watson Duke's style. You have leaderships. You have styles of leadership. Watson Duke has his own style of leadership. It's one that has not been written about. It's one it seems as though some good person has to study and come up with a model for it. But it's one that is not conventional, right? So if I was in Farley's position, the first thing you must know when you sign up to work with Duke, you're signing up to take all of Duke how Duke is. That's the first thing. And I hope he's listening in. The next thing is, you're in a position today, Mr. Augustine, that I can't predict the future. But the trajectory in politics has always informed me, you see, once you have a position like this, it's not an easy thing to get back in the future. It's not easy. You may get back. It's not easy. You see, when you're there, You have to do all you can for the people of the island to fulfill what you would have liked to do for the people. And that's why I said they wanted the job so long. You don't want to risk that with a public fallout with a person like Watson Duke. To me, I blame Farley. Farley he had to learn what is the high road. That is number one. And you have to know what is your purpose at this time. And to me, that purpose I felt was to help improve the lives of the people of Tobago. And that's what you had to concentrate on. And you can't allow one person and one person's expression derail you from that. So what to me he should have done was reach out to Duke and say, partner, let's discuss this behind the scenes. Let's see how best we could reconcile our differences here and see how we can take this thing forward. There must be a misunderstanding, else we wouldn't be looking to meet like this now. And then he could have taken the platform and tell anyone, we all know Mr. Duke. Mr. Duke would always be Mr. Duke. That's why we're in office today, you know. Mr. Duke probably is a strange maverick, right? But that is the makeup of the gentleman. And he and I have agreed to meet and we'll work it out as we should. And we'll come back again together on the stage and we'll let you all know how we're going forward. But to stand up there and take debate and engage in a public fight with Mr. Duke, which Mr. Duke is at home with that type of thing, you know. That is the way called drinking milk for Mr. Duke, you know. And you're going into when you have to go into a war, Karen, one of the things you want to look at is where you're going to fight, where the terrain would be that would be in your favor. You will go and look to fight in Mr. Duke's terrain, on his terms. That's Farley's makeup. Farley comes across conventional, decent, structured, honest, fair degree of eloquence. And for a young man, he has a lot of political knowledge. The part I think he needs to put under his feet is a little ego that our flesh has linkage to. Ego is attached to our heart, our mind, and our flesh. Consume you and destroy you. And then you'll have advisors who will be putting those things in your head. So I think he needs to grow a little more. Probably he needed to go through this too to become the type of leader in the future. As I conclude, you do not have a good leader who has not been put through anything tough. You get the best leaders who emerge from tough situations, who are now prepared and positioned to respond to future challenges. Just like Moses, when they throw him out of Egypt, and the Pharaoh's son say, go and walk across the desert because my father couldn't speak. Or what type of debt to give to you for the betrayal. Go out there and be king over scorpions and snakes. Remember, the son told him that and give him a staff. Say that is your weapon. Fight them with that. If you survive, so be it, he say. If you didn't make it, so be it. But you don't have to stay wondering what happened to you. Never come back to Egypt, as we'll deal with it. Why am I saying that? When you was crossing the desert, the Lord didn't intervene and save him right away, you know. The Lord waited until Moses was almost on the verge of death. And then scripture said, his body had now become right for the maker's hands to use. So he had to purge himself of all that he was an Egypt and a king and a prince or whatever, and what he was to become. And then he became that person, that vessel that the Lord could have used to free the people from Egypt, because he had a mental development now where it didn't matter what the Pharaoh said, what anybody said. His role was to free the people because he was now working under God. And did he achieve it? Yes. But he had to reach a certain level first. Farley probably had to go through this to come out of the fire a much better person, having gone through it, to lead perhaps the whole country in the future.
But can I just say something now?
No, I done there.
You done? Yeah,
you
okay, because I want, yes, because we are diametrically opposed in our position with regard to Farley, Augustine, and Watson Duke. And I will start from this point of view. I think that Watson Duke has become fearful, has become concerned, and feels threatened by the popularity of Farley Davidson, Augustine. And the reason I say that is because we have had 7 years of a prime minister who has mastered the art of buffing, aggression, speaking to people anyhow, and we are tired of it. We have had enough. We do not need any more of that style of leadership. Maybe there may be a time again in some far distant future, but at this point in time, one of the major issues that Dr. Rowley suffers from is the way that he behaves, the way that he speaks, his aggressiveness, his unapproachability. And I'm very sorry to say he shares that.
No, I am not.
No, I didn't interrupt you. I did not interrupt you.
No, hold on. I'm just saying one thing.
Why are you saying anything for? Let me finish.
I'm saying I'm in agreement.
No. Let me finish. Let me finish because I listened to you and I did not interrupt you. And I am saying to you that the characteristics that Watson Duke shows or to the public are exactly the kinds of characteristics which the country has become tired of, exhausted, and feel that they have not been respected. And what else goes against Watson Duke, which I have nothing against him personally at all. I had the experience of him when I was in TTRA, and he came there with his team to rough me up, playing big thing, that is his style, so I don't, people, wasn't leopards or change the spot, so whatever is he saying. So you see what he's showing, when somebody show you who they are, believe them. Don't think they're going to change. That is who they are, right? And he seems to have an affinity for things material. What was he doing, posing in the Hyatt with his wife, his children, and himself in these gowns? What was he doing, parading himself with all the glasses, his shirt down to his hair is showing, and the gold chain and the gold thing? What is he doing? He has an affinity for things material, and that is a very dangerous thing in a leader. Because if I wanted to know what your weakness is, he has it on full parade. That is one thing. And secondly, he has a manner of speaking to people. If he's doing that and he's not the prime minister, I would not want to see him in that role. And thirdly, you have blamed Farley for responding. He is the leader. What's in the leader? You lead. That's what you lead by example. You feel threatened by him, and you went on the thing to embarrass him and say you have 27 people hungry and all, and why couldn't you call him and tell him that? And from my understanding, up to now, my understanding is that it was not a THA event, but the THA was providing some support by way of 400,000. Why did you have to do that? If you want to pretend that you don't understand that Watson Duke feels very threatened by the likes of Farley Augustine, because Farley Augustine is what people want. They want somebody, he's young, that's the only thing against him. And Dr. B. Israel, I've spoken to him many times, intelligent, educated. You want people that are, and he has conducted himself in a manner that we want from a leader. I am very sorry if I have to look at how Watson Duke conducts himself in everything, in going up in Laventil and telling those boys, instead of trying to uplift them, telling them something, they have a right to do they could do what they want, they're justified. I am very sorry. He's very threatened by Farley Augustine, because if I had to choose as a leader, I would choose Farley Augustine any day over him, because I am not going through another Dr. Rowley. I am not, and especially a man who seems in love, enamored of clothes and car and all that. I think you're going to put a person like that to rule my country when those are the same problems we're dealing with right now? No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Karen, I never said I'm voting. Yes. I never said I'm voting for Duke. What my piece was to extend Farley's stay and let him grow and be successful and have the political guile.
But let his leader grow first. Let his leader grow first, because his leader had no right to go in the public domain to embarrass Farley Davidson, Augustine. Why didn't he pick up the phone and call him? right?
Karen,
What is he supposed to do?
Karen,
Not answer.
can you try to answer that?
Yes.
Because you are right, but there's another thing, and I will say it. One could argue that Mr. Duke is looking for a fight.
Of course he's looking for it, because you know why he's looking for a fight? You know why he's looking for a fight? Because he knows that Farley, Augustine, if you ask the COP people, if they would accept PDP, they would accept PDP with Farley, not with Watson Duke. Because Watson Duke, I have nothing against him, man, you know. I have nothing against him, you know. But he's telling me who he is, and I don't want anybody shouting at me. I don't want anybody with aggression, and I don't want anybody in love with material things, posing in the Hyatt, like if he's a king, she's a queen, and the two children there decide. What in heaven's name was that about? What was that about? I have never seen such. That is, you think you're on one of those shows, what, the Real Housewives of something? What is that about? Hip hop America?
Karen, let me tell you something.
David, you know I'm talking the truth, David. When I saw that picture in the Hyatt with him posing and the wife on this long gown and the two children standing up in the back and he in the front, I said, whoops. I said, well, he letting you know what's important to him, right? And the only parting him with the shades and all his shirt opened up here, and he's seen his hair and the gold chain. I want him as my prime minister. No way, no how.
Karen.
Yes, sir.
I don't think anybody's talking for Mr. Duke to become prime minister. You
don't mean Farley, Augustine, and Dr. B. Israel, who I have interviewed several times on another station.
The deputies he fired. They are the bright ones in the party.
Not only bright, it's not just bright. It's not bright only. Stable, mature, seeking the interest of their country.
Educational development is responsible for them to be stable and to be able to demonstrate
that's a personality too, man.
Not going to be shaped by a development, Karen.
Okay, so why Dr. Rowley behaves like that and he has a PhD?
I can explain that to an attempt. No, but you know, in law, you have every general rule. No, I'm telling you, well, it's the law in me. It's the law in me. So let me tell you.
David, you hear how he come in? It's the law.
I'm not a lawyer, Karen, but I have my law degree, Karen.
Yes, sir.
While we can talk about a lawyer, I can only go as far as I can.
Yes, sir.
So, I am saying, Karen, in law, right, you have a general rule for everything for anyone who did a degree. There's always a general rule. But every general rule has an exception. Dr. Rowley could be that, if you know what I mean. So you'd find that too.
Well, guess what? He has two exceptions, him and Watson.
But what I was saying though was to help Farley survive and grow. And
I want Farley to drive and grow.
Yeah, no, that's the point. And my point is, this was I hope he's listening, because it wouldn't help Farley. In other words, you know, there's a saying.
Yeah.
If you go and you mustn't fight with idiots, because they will take you down to your level and beat you with their experience. You remember I spoke about you're going into a war, you go fight an enemy stuff. That don't make sense, and that's what Farley did.
Okay, so listen to what I want to tell Farley. I only have 10 minutes more on your show.
Hold on, right. Let me say this. I'm responding, Karen.
Why you must? No. I want to send a message to Farley.
Listen to you.
No. I'm not going to be there tomorrow.
I want to send a message to Farley. You know, just so I told you. Go ahead, because I'll be here. No.
Yeah, that's what I tell them on the other show. I tell them only on Wednesdays. And then they shut up. No, but I want to say this. Farley, you'll be making a great mistake if you fight fire with fire, because why you have risen to the respect of people like myself and what they'll call the COP people or the floating voter is because of your reasoned, clear and mature thing. And no matter how angry, you must always remember this. When someone does things you show your character when you are in a war. That shows who you are, because then you let down all your defenses. And if I were to give you advice, which I wish I could have given you personally, go in a bathroom and curse and say whatever you have to say in the bathroom. But when you walk out, you handle yourself with decorum, with regard and firmness, and do not descend into the guile, because that's what they want. Once you do that, you are no different from what you're fighting.
And that's what I'm saying.
And what you have going for you is your reasoned, respectful, and firm response. And do not, if you made a mistake, because the politics is not a very forgiving game. If you made a mistake to behave in the manner that your boss is behaving, you would have lost the support you have gained. So, Dr. B. Israel, I have the highest regard for you. Falia Castine, I have the highest regard for you. Do not make the error of falling into that trap of responding in anger, because we've had enough anger in this country for 7 years. And Watson Duke is a continuation of that anger, and also a love of material things, at least based on this constant display. He's showing you who he is. So don't be surprised. He's showing you who he is.
And Karen,
what you have to say now?
Well, I can't say anything now. You have said that we're on the same page. So that's what we're saying. That's what we're saying. Yeah, of course we're on the same page, yeah. And you have advice, Fali. That's exactly what I'm telling Fali. And but what I'm saying, I had to detail it out to him for him to understand what he's up against. You have somebody trying to pick a fight with you, and you will agree in the public domain. You're crazy on his terms. No, you take the high road, Fali.
But he did not. But no. But in all fairness, and I don't know these people, so I don't hold any brief for anybody. In all fairness,
you know Watson, he has come onto this show many times. And he has always conducted himself quite decent and professional every time.
And I've spoken to him for a reason that I can't
forget that. You know, I'm a fair guy. So every time,
and I will say too, I have spoken to him
with the type of decency you'd expect of someone who's running for office. And
and I will also say I had reason to talk to him. He called me for whatever reason it was, and the conversation was very pleasant, very respectful. I cannot say otherwise. Okay, so we have had. I will be with you on that in that regard. But I'm saying to you that his style of politicking had more to do with the rejection of the PNM, in Tobago, and the fact that he had people of the quality of Dr. B. Israel, he had the right people behind him. I think that had a lot to do with it. And
that made up the combination.
I think so. Yes, but I really will say that the way that Watson Duke came after him, and you had people suffering and they living in the basement, and he answered. We had to answer. What was he to do? If he didn't answer, then he would be saying it's true.
Karen, he could have answered, but how?
I don't think he did a bad job.
When Duke returned, put out for the public to hear, you're going to meet with Deputy Chief Secretary to discuss what was in the public domain. You win more people in this.
That's a good point.
You put that out first. If he rejects it, he lose more of his supporters.
I agree.
So that in case something happened that
that's good politics.
I want to meet with them to see how we could reconcile it and fix it going forward, but also to signal as a leader we are as stable and strong as ever before.
And clarify the misunderstanding, because you can't leave that misunderstanding.
After I meet with them, then I'll come outside and say, I met with Mr. Duke. This was the concern.
And you should be with Mr. Duke when you're talking.
And let me tell you, if I think I went wrong too in some area, I would say I want to accept part of the blame for this part that concern him, and I want to say this will never happen again. But we have to come up with a new approach that once something
that's a good point.
Behind
Counselor, that's a good point you mean. I want to ask you something before I leave, because it's 5:56. Is the Noray, the artist, related to you?
Well, it's all Norays from Tobago, and we all related. And we have reunions. I don't meet one set of Norays and I don't know them. So I am so
sorry he's not your brother.
Why?
Because he is a fantastic artist. I first saw his art.
Well, I know he's not my brother, and he could be my cousin.
But no, I would like him to be a brother. It's closer. If you know what I mean. He may be your brother and he may be your brother in God, but we're not talking about godly brothers, brethren. We're not talking about brethren here. I know you like to wax with the
biological,
but I'm talking about blood.
And,
yes, because I have to say, when he now came out in one of the art studios there, I saw some. I was just struck by it. But at that time, and so it continues. It was outside my financial. Don't tell me I'm not saying talking the truth. It was outside my financial means to afford it. But I tell you, Superville from Tobago and Noray is fabulous. And if I heard his art is very, very expensive now. Too bad I didn't get him when he now started. That's why I asked if he was your. That's why I asked if he was your brother.
Also, you were looking for this song, Karen.
I did not use those. Do not use those words. I did not say that. I did not. Do not put words in my mouth.
No, I didn't say
not putting words in my mouth.
Well, Karen, how can put words in your mouth through asking a question? I'm only asking.
If you are asking a rhetorical question,
Karen, is that too much to ask?
You are asking a rhetorical question. You really do not want an answer. You have already answered your own question like Dr. Rowley.
And if Skippy was here, he would say now, there's a discount you wanted.
You see, I just asked if he would.
No, I just said if Skippy was here, not me.
Richard Noray, I did not go off the air and call you and ask you that, huh? Right.
No,
and Ruben, thank you for the thing, because you know what they were saying, Monsieur
What Ruben did, Karen? What Ruben did?
Don't worry about it, but you tell you. They agree with me. They agree with me with Augustine.
I see. No, then they agreed with me too. Karen. Now look here, for example.
All a lot
Karen
of fun.
And Richard, I think you all are saying the same thing, you know. Karen, there's no difference between what you are saying and what
Who's saying that?
Karen, Noray, and you are saying the same thing, but only differently. Karen, people.
Okay, put it down now. Put it down now. You read out what you want me to see.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Richard, Noray, Ruben, David.
Yes,
and all of those who make my day on an afternoon on a Monday, your listeners, I meet them a lot of times and they tell me how they enjoy the show. And I thank you. It's my great pleasure to be with you. And I really do enjoy the interaction between all of us, including Ruben, who sends a little message for me.
He doesn't send any for me. He doesn't send any for me.
Quiet. He said it quietly. He said it quietly.
Some of the messages coming in.
And David, it's always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure.
Karen on fire. She has what's in due to a T. Yeah. Tell Ruben, you're supposed to say, tell the people, Karen and I. Come on. All right.
But I had a wonderful evening with you all as usual. And I look forward to next week.
30 seconds extra. What kind of thing is that? As it is, say 6 o'clock, you're ready to run off?
Yeah, because I had a long day today.
All right. We understand.
I had a long day today. But I look forward. Actually, I was in a meeting and I told them I have to go. As I like to say in my patois English, I has to go. No matter I'm a convent girl, I don't know how. Remember, my husband was from Nelson Street. All right, and I met him living there.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. I am gone. I had a lovely time with all of you as usual, and look forward to seeing you next week. Yes. I'm sure we'll have a lot to talk about. And Richard,
your husband, Karen, late husband, he had wonderful, exceptional taste. What a lucky gentleman. Karen, I'll set the clock now. Yeah. Have a light flashing in it right there. It tells me it's time to set the clock for next week.
All right. So, see you next week. All the best.
Yeah, thank you
Yes,
so
same
much,
to you.
Karen.
Take care.
Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much.
Take it
Take care.
easy.
Bye-bye.
We got the news at the top.
I would hold on for the news, Daddy Mac.
Okay.
Power 102 Digital.
Yeah.
We sound like home. Power 102 Digital.